Welcome everyone to the epic conclusion of the LEC Spring Split. After 11 weeks packed with action, Origen, Fnatic, and G2 Esports have arrived in Rotterdam, where we will decide our very first LEC champions in front of thousands of fans in the Ahoy Arena. Hello everyone, I'm esports kicking off the weekend with Indiana Frosker in black and Jacob Yamato Cannon Mehdi.
Looking fly, Jacob.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys look awesome, and I just have to ask to be sure, are we ready for the epicness that is going to be this weekend with Fnatic, OG, and G2?
I don't think we can be. I've been preparing in the city. Rotterdam is amazing. Almost got run over by bikes, but I'm fine and I'm here, so I'm excited. I'm happy.
I mean, ultimately, you couldn't script a better finale for this spring split. The fact that we have the top 3 teams, Origen, Fnatic, and G2, all in Rotterdam. It is action-packed. Both Saturday and Sunday will be incredible.
That it is. So let's get into it and remind ourselves how we ended up here. We do have changed our format this year in terms of the bracket, and now the semi-final is being held today, followed by the fight for the LEC Spring title tomorrow. Of course, round 1, Fnatic knocked out Vitality, Splyce won versus SK. Fnatic then knocked out Splyce in round 2. G2 and OG played each other. OG, as the loser, now gets a rematch in this semi-final versus Fnatic, whilst the final boss is G2 tomorrow.
And I am a huge fan of this format, not even just like a pimping Riot shill right now. I actually just love how it played out. I love that G2 are rewarded for their dominance and that they have to win 2 best-of-5s to go to MSI, now get the extra time to data mine between this best-of-5 before they face their opponents in the finals. I love that Origen are rewarded for their consistency, that they got a second chance after losing to G2 in round 2. And I love that Fnatic are on the rise in that momentum. And at the end of the day, every team is on the same timetable. People keep talking about the 24-hour turnaround between semifinals and finals. Ultimately, every single team is preparing for 2 different opponents. So I think it's across the board equal.
I think that's the biggest point for me. We were preparing for the quarterfinals, and if we only had 4 days, it would have even looked worse than it did, for sure.
Yeah, this is also where, you can really show if you're a good coach, if you have a good system behind your team, if you only have that time to prepare for the final. We're not there, though, yet. Today, we have Fnatic versus OG, and when we look at Origen, our recent memory isn't too good of them, I would say. Last week, of course, they played G2 in their round 2 matchup. We hadn't seen them for 3 weeks, and that went for both G2 and Origen. We didn't know which G2 was going to show up, and well, it was a G2 that crushed OG.
And there was a lot of questions, with Mickey's wrist, with the limited amount of scrims, with kind of this question mark on G2's ending performance in Spring Split. No one knew how dominant they were going to be, and they looked head and shoulders above even their early Spring Split performance. This looked like final form G2.
This was a slumping G2 that came into playoffs, and it was very nice to see them go 3-0. But I think 3-0 sounds so stompish, but I think Origen showed off a lot of great things. I think Trashy in the early game showed a lot more aggression, and I'm very happy about the fact that he chose to pop out from this series.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Yamato there. I think people really need to take a magnifying glass. We talked to a lot of coaches on euphoria, and everyone said the same thing. Yes, it was an 0-3 from Origen, but ultimately the games got closer. It wasn't just as one-sided as that score would have determined, so I think there is hope for Origen today in this series.
I mean, hope, I think it's more than that. They got to number 2 in the regular season for a reason, and I think we can't overlook that when we go into this match versus Fnatic. But of course, Fnatic, on the other hand, well, they are on an absolute roll. They are now 14-1 in their last 15 games in their round 2 matchup versus Splyce. They dropped the game, so they did end the winning streak. But I think if you're a Fnatic fan, you're happy with that series. How do you guys think their skill level is, and have they reached their peak?
I feel like Fnatic finally found their identity. They're drafting these teamfight compositions, they're all around grouping, and they finally enabling the right lanes. I feel like they have a game plan. Right now we see Brox also enabling himself, and they're actually coming together as a team finally when they had this rough beginning of a split.
And that was the word that was repeated over and over. Every single time we interviewed or got a chance to talk to Fnatic, the biggest change was teamwork. It was trust. It was the fact that each individual member decided that they trusted in each other to have the responsibility. Whip was like, I don't have to be the carry. I can rely on Reckless. Reckless is thinking, I don't need to step up here. Brox is going to take care of it.
So, just to be devil's advocate, Fnatic didn't have to do anything versus Vitality. Did not have to do that much versus Splyce. I'm taking this also from, their Legends in Action vlog series afterwards. Hillesang said, we weren't even trying that much. I have a bit of a problem to see how strong Fnatic really are, because I don't think the competition has been extremely strong. Not to discredit Splyce, right? Because they definitely played very well, but I still have a hard time seeing if they're actually really good or not. And I think this weekend is going to say a lot.
I think what we can take away from the series is that they know how to close out games. They know how to play to their own identity, and at the same time, I feel like at any point in the game, I didn't feel like they slowed down. It was very clear what they wanted to do, and I think that speaks miles. And on top of that, warming up in those best of fives means a great deal when you play these best of fives in the end stage of playoffs.
Yeah, and for me, it's about the momentum, the fact that Fnatic are probably feeling incredibly confident. And when I think about a lot of these players, particularly their bot lane, I think they play so well with that type of confidence, and this is probably the most terrifying Fnatic you're ever going to face. Yeah, they dropped a single game in a best-of-5 against Splice, but that game was a lane swap. You know,
scarier than Caps, Fnatic?
I mean, this...
Who need Fnatic?
Oh my god, the hype is real!
Not necessarily this roster iteration, although we will see the potential that Nemesis has, but just this idea that when you have 2 best-of-5s under their belt, when they're feeling warmed up, when they have that confidence in themselves, this is when you have to fear this team.
Yeah, I follow you completely. And of course, you know, it could all be thrown out the window. That's what we'll see here this weekend. Fnatic OG tomorrow, the winner versus today, the winner versus G2 tomorrow. And in addition to the LEC finals, you guys can also watch the teams in EU Masters battle for their region. Let's check out what happened in the group draw earlier this week.
We are going to jump straight into games, ladies and gentlemen. It is the first game of the EU Masters 2019 Spring Play-ins. Might be able to do it. Kerberos has got his ultimate available, but they are going to try and make a move mid. Oh, he actually saves the Akali, and the Akali gets out! Funko with the biggest blunder. Mad Lions went for the proactive play, and it just didn't quite work out. And now actually Lighter trying to come in here now and see if he can do something here. Flash, Ignite, ultimate, and he's out of there!
A few things in a row, not going so well for the Terriers.
Oh, with the follow-up underneath the top! It is on right now, here we go, he jumps in, gets the drive-by, and it's stolen off immediately, but he might end up trading his life for it. Cataclysm comes down, importantly obsessed with able to get it up before he dies, but the rest on the side of the Devil's One are just cleaning up house. Leader is not able to get onto the targets. Yes, the Vayne dies, but it doesn't matter. The damage is done, and it's going to be Devil's One who are able to completely clean that fight.
That's an engage though by Hema. He looks to go aggressive onto Dots, who actually buys some time, but unfortunately flashes a little bit late here. Neon does jump in, but the heal keeps him safe, and Kedowi is responding. Lost damage coming back down. Oh, the burst! First blood onto Kedowi. He's going for the second. Neon's already used his flash. Double kill. Going over to SK. Is it going to be an engage here? Trying to go onto Leader. The flash comes through from Genax. That's going to be an easy pickup. And now can Genax turn things around? There's the Rek'Sai ultimate. And, oh, it's going to be close. Double kill. That is the power of a Renekton in ultimate. And,
Diabolus, they're feeling so much pressure as the last breath lands onto Croxon, tries to heal up for the moment, and he's just got the solo kill. Croxon is being smashed in this lane. There's no vision at this point of poor Devil's One.
There's the teleport coming through for Sakura.
They now know what's being done.
It's a the blue ward. It's a complete table turn. Can Devil's One do anything about this? It's a flank from Genax. He finds the back line. That's the big engage. A shutdown does go down to Kedowi, but the rest of the team gets slammed by SK. That is a break that maybe puts you in to the European Masters group stages.
Fantastic stuff. The European Masters, of course, going into their group play. There are some groups of death, or actually one, I should say. But it's so awesome when you watch it, because this is also the future of the people that will be playing here, hopefully in a few years, or as early as summer or next year.
I mean, I believe we had, what, 13 players that came from our ERL leagues that played in the LEC this spring split. And then, like you're saying, it's such a good taste tester for probably what we're going to see this weekend. A lot of the LEC teams scrim with the ERL teams, so they kind of give you a preview of some of the crazy picks that can come out and some of the strategies that the LEC teams are preparing behind closed doors.
I love the addition of it. I think this is the real MSI. There's this meme going on over in North America. They have the MSI Academy, whatever.
MSI.
This is the real one. We've got teams from all over the place with talent all over the place. I think this is where you find the next big players.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. But to bring it back to what is going on here this weekend in the Ahoy, and to set the stakes for the teams fighting this weekend, let's head down to the arena with QuickShot.
Thank you very much, Shucks, and welcome, Ahoy. I want to take a look at the 3 teams playing on this stage, because I think there's a redemption arc for all of them, and I'm gonna prove it to you. Let's start with the fact that Origen returned to this stage after 3 years of being absent. After becoming one of the most celebrated teams in Europe, they fell from the face of the earth. And after getting smashed by G2 last weekend, Origen have to redeem themselves to the fans here in Rotterdam and to all around the world. The challenge will be difficult though, because standing in their way is Fnatic today, and if they advance, G2 esports. How can G2 have a redemption arc, you might say? Well, let's take a look at the 2018 season. This was a team that had won 4 consecutive European titles, only to be upstaged by Fnatic for the entirety of 2018. G2 esports made the biggest roster move of the off-season, bringing in Caps, stealing the crown prince of Fnatic, and making themselves the best team in Europe till now. They have to win it all tomorrow, pick up that 5th trophy, and see whether or not Perks and crew can redeem last year's performance. But of course, in order to do so, they need to get through Fnatic, a Fnatic roster that I didn't even think was gonna make it to the finals. They started the split going 1-5. And I haven't forgotten their performance at the World Championship Finals last year. Fnatic have to prove to everybody that they can make the biggest, most difficult, most challenging playoff run to secure a title. And they have to take down Origen today. They have to take down G2 tomorrow. That's a redemption arc for all 3 teams. And I want to pivot to a small celebration. I want to take a look at Europe's 6-star general. Netherlands, I give you your very own Youngbuck. 6 consecutive European titles. And this man will look to make it 7. Will he do it on home soil? Shocks, that's the question I asked the analyst desk.
Is the question. You could have chosen a more flattering photo. He looks really angry in that photo. Maybe that's because he's angry on whoever they will be facing.
That was the 0-4 start face.
Yeah, I think so as well, indeed. So yeah, I think that sets the stage perfectly for just the weight of this weekend. Because when it comes to the stories of each single one of these organizations, it is absolutely huge. And I think that is completely embodied in Fnatic versus Origen today. Because when we start with Fnatic, their name is synonymous with European League of Legends on the highest level. They've always been around, Yamato, and they've always won.
I feel like, you know, I've been a player and a coach for 9 years now.
Yeah.
And Fnatic was always the team to beat. No matter what players was on that roster, whether it was CHK, xPeke, Caps, or Febiven, it was always the team to beat. And it was always this pressure that you had in game. You're loading into it. You always knew if I win this one, it's going to mean a great deal. It's going to be a top Reddit. It's going to mean so much. So the weight is definitely there.
It's also the idea that Fnatic are just kind of the pillar of European League of Legends, and it feels like their blueprint and their fingerprint is felt everywhere. Not just on this roster, but the fact that, you know, where did Caps come from? Where did Febiven come from? Where did xPeke come from? xPeke synonymous with Origen, Caps now on G2. You know, Fnatic's pedigree branches out everywhere across this region. It starts so many legends.
Yeah, definitely. So 7 titles already, of course, just last year, making it to the final of the World Championship. Absolutely huge. And when I think of, you know, all the achievements, I also think of OG. And no, there weren't that many achievements in that sense of the word. 2015 was amazing, though. They made it to the semi-final of Worlds. But I also think about the heart of Europe when I think of Origen. You mentioned xPeke before, and we saw it just this year. Origen came back, joined the LEC, and the fans were immediately there again, backing them up.
I mean, Origen is the sweetheart of Europe. It's hard not to like this team with so many big personalities on it. The fact that it's xPeke, it's Deficio, their brainchild, Mythy returns from NA. I mean, it's, again, you cannot script this better, so we definitely need to give our writers a raise because they are really working at this split.
And it's like, I have to give them a lot of love too, because half of the players, I've worked with them in the past. And it's, for me, it's amazing to see them on the stage because it makes me proud as a former coach.
Yeah, your 2016 Splice roster, scattered between Origen and G2, Splice themselves. I believe, what, 4 out of 5 members were in our LEC playoffs this split. plus you, the coach there as well with Vitality. Crazy.
Yeah, I love it that the teams now, they don't just tell the story of what the teams consist of right now, but of the years that they have played in Europe to get to this point. Now, when we say Fnatic and OG, we also have to think about 2015. I don't know if it rings a bell, but I definitely do remember. We were in Stockholm. Fnatic played Origen. It went all the way to 5 games. It was one of the best series, if not the best, in European history. We want more of that.
I was right there in Stockholm live, seeing the Tristana on both sides popping off one way and another. This time around in this replay, it's losing though, so maybe my point doesn't stand, but it was a crazy game with a lot of pentakills.
No, you're right. In game 3, Reckless got a pentakill on Tristana in front of his home crowd. In the end, it was Fnatic that took it away, but I think this is an example of what we want to see. Fnatic, Origen, play like this, please, today.
And what's crazy is that that's just the semi-final in the LEC. You know, that's not even our final right now. We have that 2015 Fnatic Black versus Fnatic Orange making the rematch here.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Let's hope it plays out that way as well. And for a walk down memory lane, let's hear from one of the players who was on stage during the 2015 Summer Finals, Origen's xPeke.
And thank you very much, Shox, and thank you, Peke, for joining me. The last time we saw Origen facing Fnatic was in 2015. You were playing back then. How special is it for you to watch your boys play from afar now?
It's a completely different story than when you're playing and when you're watching, because you're more like leave everything to happen, but you get as nervous and you cannot control it. And I think I feel more emotion now watching than when I was playing, because I was focused on the game and not thinking. But at the same time, I'm just super excited that we made it now so far to Rotterdam already. Like back to a few years ago, it brings me good memories. So yeah, just want to watch the games already.
Any special vibes from back then and having this rematch today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. It was really nice because we were taking pictures, the Fish and I first in the booth, and we got to see so many fans, like back in the past. Of course, a lot of them have Fnatic jerseys now, but hopefully after today we can change some of that.
Unfortunately, when you think about Origen's story, you had an amazing year in 2015, and then you guys disappeared into the abyss, per se. So talk me through your journey to climb back up and setting up Origen at the place it is today.
Yeah, it has been a keep trying effort, pretty much. Like I tried many times. We tried with the Challenger series, then we tried to come back. Of course, when the franchise was announced, we didn't have anything to come back but the actual application. So we still did play in the European Masters, and we just kept trying to do anything possible to show Riot that we could be a strong team in the league, like when we started at first, and not the Origen from the last years, you know.
Were you expecting to be that good on your return and first showing with this lineup?
Well, we expected to grow over time. Of course, when we had the first, the players said it themselves that they would be happy making playoffs and then improving. And I like that because it's a mentality I always had myself, that is just focus on what you have next and then try to improve and have fun on the way. And yeah, I'm super excited because being true, I didn't know if we would make it to top 3 the way we made it during the end of the split. So I'm already really happy with the result we got.
As you mentioned, yeah, you climbed back up and you are here today. I want to mention something that Fnatic brought up last week in the preview before round 2. They said that playing against them can be unsettling for the opponent. What is your take on that? And what advice can you give your players to perform at their best today?
That depends. I mean, I have no idea about that because I used to play for Fnatic. So when I played against them, for me, it's nothing special. It's just another team that I used to play for, and they are pretty good right now. But I wouldn't be scared of them because I don't think they have anything crazy that you are like, wow. They don't have anything that really scares you. But of course, you have to take care of them as a team because they always have their style. It's a bit more different, a bit more aggressive early and stuff. But I think we have a good matchup against them.
Confident still?
I think so. I mean, I think it's gonna be a 3-2, but I cannot be sure against who. But I'm gonna give us the edge. I think the first game is gonna be important for us, and after that, it's just gonna be about staying relaxed, have fun, and play the best we can.
Well, thank you for your words, and I wish you good luck on today's game. Now back to you, Shox.
Thank you very much, Laure. Wonderful to hear from Peke. Of course, it is great that Origen is back at the top, but they're not done yet. He did say for today, not scared of Fnatic, 3-2, his prediction. So
what is that?
That sounds scared to me.
I'm not scared. 3-2.
Or respecting the opponent, still a little scared, 3-2. So I'm just going to ask you guys, who's the favorite today? Do you agree with Peke?
I have to disagree with Peke. I think Fnatic is the clear favorite.
Frost?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm also leaning on the Fnatic side. I think the interesting thing, though, is that so many coaches have also said the same thing, that the first game will be so important. So that again, goes into this mentality, big stage, stadium arena, best of 5. Who is going to come out swinging and find that momentum for the rest of the series? Because it should be fairly close.
Yeah, then let's take a closer look and really dive into this matchup. And let's start with the favorites. I think that's fair to say. Fnatic in this one. Of course, they're on an absolute tear as of recent. How do they get their wins? What do they like to do?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is Fnatic is a very clear identity in how they play. They play these teamfight compositions that revolve around their CC and how they just pretty much peel for Reckless. And something that I want to focus in on is Hylissang's Braum. Because when we're practicing against Hylissang's Braum, this is the Braum that you learn from. He plays Braum in such a way that you can't really imagine, because he blocks the projectiles, he enables Reckless to carry those team fights, even when he's behind. It's all about blocking those auto attacks. The way he engages with Braum, the way he just uses the champion to maximum potential is absolutely amazing to watch.
I think one of the interesting discussions kind of coming into this matchup is it feels that Fnatic is a bit more one-dimensional than someone like Origen. We always talk about Origen's versatility, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. When you think about Fnatic, you don't necessarily think of them as, you know, a bowman, a swordsman, you know, they can pull out a whip. They're just like, they master one ability, and it kind of is mirrored in Reckless himself. You know, Reckless faces a lot of criticism about his champion pool and how it's more limited than other ADCs, but he's a master of the champions that he plays. He puts in the dedication and the hours, and I think that's something very similar to Fnatic with their compositions. They're not the widest spread, but they are masters of this style.
Yeah, and when they're master of their style, when you mention Reckless and just that whole team, they're just so good when it comes down to the clutch situations. This is a team that you don't want to face when you get to the late game.
I feel like the main thing that speaks to how they play is the creativity. I think Hylissang as a player always does these crazy level 1s. You have these cheesy kind of plays that sometimes work, and then you get Hylissang rolling. Later parts in the game, you see them doing the classic Fnatic push, maybe hiding somewhere and just always creating new scenarios for themselves, and I think that's what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, and speaking of the early level 1s, for me, I feel like step 1 Fnatic does start with kind of Hilly and Broxah and how they set it up, and then Broxah's jungle pathing. It used to be that Broxah was fairly predictable, that he would always, you know, clear out his jungle, he had very formulaic pathing, but now he will often sacrifice his jungle, so the enemy jungler is thinking like, he's got all of his camps on the top side, there's no way he's bot side, and then Broxah rolls out of a bush at level 2 and messes up your bot lane.
And I can tell you, preparing against someone like Broxah, when he's doing level 2 ganks on Skarner, usually the thing that every jungler agreed on was that Skarner is going to farm to level 4, get his Predator, and then go. Here we have a level 2 gank, completely breaking the Draven lane, Vayne double kill. You know in your solo queue games, the game is just over when that happens. Following it up with a gank on top lane, all of a sudden the game is over. Only because of Broxah's creativity and just thinking outside of the box.
And against someone like Cold, who is such a pathing-oriented jungler, I think Broxah might be one of the hardest junglers to prepare for because he does have that unpredictability factor for himself now.
Yeah, a lot of pluses and I think a lot of positives for Fnatic. They've also been winning a lot in the last couple of weeks. SS 14-1 in the last 15 games. But then let's look at Origen, because as you guys said, I think it's very important to remember that G2 was at their peak and Origen still put up a fight. It does look very, very damning when you see that 0-3 scoreline. However, we can't forget that there's many good things about Origen. What do you want to see here today to give them a chance?
For me, Origen's kind of like this idea of, I know that they have the potential to be amazing. We saw it during the regular split, but I don't know if I give them the faith to reach that anymore. They have such a depth of different styles. They can play 1-4, they can play 5v5, they can play 1-3-1. But do they pick the correct one at the right time? And for me, I think the highlight is you have to go to the star player in Nukeduck. Like, you know Nukeduck can be an absolute god, but Origen often don't weaponize him. They don't put him on champions to try to expose people. Like, when you think about the highlights, you think about the Zed play, the Vayne mid play, but a lot of time he's kind of put on Zoe duty or Lissandra duty. I want the carry Nukeduck today.
Yeah, and I think that Nukeduck versus Nemesis is such an interesting matchup across the board. Of course, we can't forget Nemesis, he's played in front of big crowds back in the Superliga, but this is now where he really has to put his money where his mouth is, even though he doesn't talk that much. Yes. Versus Nukeduck, this is a real test for him.
I feel like these two players kind of signify what their teams stand for. I feel like Origen is the team that always adjusts to the enemy, and that versatility always comes from Nukeduck. He drafts the Zed against Caps, he drafts, for example, the Malzahar against others. You can just compare the champion pools right here. While Fnatic have the solid basis of the standard champions, the standard teamfight champions. We had some Kassadins that didn't really work out. Nico, Lissandra is the staple Nemesis champion, which kind of kind of summarizes Fnatic's playstyle, I feel.
Yeah. What I think is really important for Origen and Origen fans today is to give Youngbuck agency, not just in his matchup, but across the map. You're looking for picks with high mobility and for him to be playing out in those side lanes rather than someone like Alphari, and to utilize a lot of that clutch experience that he has for being such an experienced player in the region.
No, totally agree. There's also a huge discrepancy in pro games played between Nemesis and Youngbuck, so he should completely be able to pick what he wants and take over these games. That's a positive for OG. Definitely so, no doubt there. But I do want to talk a bit about the things that they have to be wary of, especially versus G2. Some of the decision-making in the clutch moments where Fnatic is really good in that department, that is where OG needs some work, I feel.
I think this series kind of made everyone worried about if they are in the same situation against Fnatic, this is where Fnatic live and thrive. They want to reach the 25 minutes, 30 minutes. They want to be on those team fights around Nashor, and this is what makes everyone worried. The decision-making around Baron was way too slow and was very uncharacteristic from the usual OG that we see. The methodical, slow, kind of burn your enemy out and then take the victory with a knockout punch.
Yeah, but this is also, you know, they've worked towards this. They were great in the regular split. They have a lot of wins. They were #2. We didn't see any of it versus G2, Frosk. So they'll have to tap into a lot at the same time, it feels like, for OG to get to that level.
Again, it's kind of like pick where you can attack. You know that OG have the potential that they can attack Fnatic, but you don't know if they'll make the right decision to do so. This word execution keeps cropping up when we talk about OG. It's what burned them in the early spring split, you know, all those isolated deaths dying for no reason, and it's what burned them against G2. They get a second chance here against Fnatic, but they better have better game plans this time around.
Yeah, and aside from the players, it's also quite a matchup for the coaches. The coach of the split, Giotto, is up against the 6-star general Youngbuck, looking to lead the Fnatic troops tonight. Let's see what he has to say before game 1.
Thank you very much, Shax, and thank you, Joey, for joining me ahead of your game today. Origins versus Fnatic certainly is one of the most memorable match in EU history. So is it special for you to be part of this rematch today?
It's not necessarily special to have Fnatic play Origen again because the lineups are very different. But being in my own home country, in Rotterdam, that really makes it special. And we've also been on our comeback journey, and we really don't want it to end today.
As you said, different teams, different history, different players. What is the key for you to take down Origen today with the teams you have?
I think both teams really like to play around the bot lane and get the early leads there and contest the dragons. So that is something that we're going to look at, and I think both teams will heavily contest that.
Awesome. When I talked to Peke, he told me, it wasn't really a prediction, he told me this would go to 5 games, no matter who wins. So what is your take on that?
My gut instinct tells me this is going to 3 games, and we'll see G2 in the finals tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you for your insights. Good luck on today. Back to you, Shax.
Thank you very much. What a title, the 6-star general. Well, we'll see if he can make it to the final and get a shot at #7. This means we're only 2 minutes away from getting into that semi-final of Fnatic versus Origen. So let's go. Predictions.
Well,
what you got?
I think, no. I know Fnatic is going to take it home, and I'm going to tell you why. I think the star power alone in a big arena like this is what is going to make the difference. They have championship players that is going to make the clutch decisions, like Hylissang, like Reckless, and I know for a fact that Fnatic, the last time the finals was here in Rotterdam, they failed to get to the finals. It's not going to happen again.
All right.
I am also going with Fnatic here, and I actually have the same faith that Youngbuck does in that I think it's going to be a 3-0. Unfortunately, I think that Origen is just too slow of a team right now to take advantage of Fnatic in the early game or try to contest them. I don't have faith that they'll attack, that they'll play to win the lane phase. And if you go 5v5 late game against Reckless and Hylissang, Fnatic will just roll over.
You are putting no faith in an Origen that became 2nd place in the regular season. And yes, they had a horrible matchup versus G2, but that could be the best team we've ever seen here in Europe.
In a case where OG spent these 2 weeks prepping only for Fnatic instead of G2, and that's what they showed up with, just some random draft, and they prepared very well towards Fnatic, and they show a big time play to Youngbuck, make sure that Mithy and Patrick is enabled to impact the map, make sure that Mithy's intelligence is enabled, then maybe OG can take some games.
This is also Alphari's watershed moment. You know, let's go back to the 5-game SKT Misfits Alphari. Let's see him actually get a counter pick on red side and try to abuse Whippo, who has been the most inconsistent member of Fnatic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for all the players in OG, you know, they want to make a statement. They want to get further than people think they can, and they want to build on that new legacy of Origen. But on the other side, it's Fnatic, the 7-time champions and the reigning champions champions here in Europe. Over the next 2 days, the first LEC champions will be decided here in the Ahoy Arena. And it all starts tonight with Origen versus Fnatic. Let's meet the teams.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2,